بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah today we're looking at hadith number 32, the shortest hadith in the collection of Imam An-Nawawi's 40 hadith, and the hadith is about no harm. So let's see if we can... So hadith number 32 about no harm. عن أبي سعيد الخدري سعد بن مالك بن سنان رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال. So this hadith is narrated on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Sa'ad ibn Malik ibn Sinan, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا ضرر ولا ضرار. There should be no harm, nor any reciprocating of harm. There should be no harm, nor any reciprocating of harm. لا ضرر ولا ضرار. Sorry. Okay, so this hadith number 32, لا ضرر ولا ضرار. First of all, the narrator, first time we're coming across this narrator in this in Imam An-Nawawi's 40 hadith, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and this narrator is known for he's one of the seven of the Mukathirin al-Riwayah, the seven who amongst them they narrated over 70% of the hadith. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala an being the head of them, and from them is Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, who narrated approximately 1,170 hadith. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri is he's also the from the Ansar, and his father Malik ibn Sinan, he was martyred in the Battle of Uhud. He was martyred in the Battle of Uhud, and he accepted the narrator himself, Abu Sa'id. He accepted Islam before he reached the age of puberty, so he lived his childhood upon al-Islam, and he lived around 74 years after Hijrah, so he lived to see all the Khulafa al-Rashidin. And he was somebody that was known to be Rawi al-Hadith, somebody who narrated many ahadith. طيب. Moving on with the actual hadith, before we go into the interesting things here, interesting principles, and although this is the shortest hadith, لا ضرر ولا ضرار, volumes have been written by scholars about just this one hadith. So much knowledge, so many principles can be derived just from this one hadith, which is the shortest hadith in the collection of Imam An-Nawawi. But I want to just touch upon some general points that we can relate to before we delve into it, inshallah. So the first thing is that the Sharia does not cause any harm to anyone. The Sharia is not here to cause any harm to anyone. As Allah says in the Quran, Allah has not made this religion as a form of difficulty for you. Allah has not made this religion as a form of difficulty upon you. And rather Allah, as we've discussed before, Allah wants for us ease and not hardship. So for example, if a person is praying salah, he's commanded to pray salah standing. If he's unable to pray salah standing because he has a problem with his legs or anything like that, the Sharia does not cause him harm by saying, no, you got to pray standing whether you like it or not. He can pray sitting down. He can't pray sitting down, he can pray lying down. So the Sharia here is of ease and does not want any hardship. Likewise, when a person is, he has some sort of illness that if he comes into contact with water, it's going to cause him harm, he doesn't have to perform his wudu, or he doesn't have to wipe that area, and he can simply do tayammum. And so on, the examples are many to give. And one example is when Rasulullah ﷺ, when he was approached by some of the companions, they went out traveling, and one of their companions, he had some sort of disease or illness that and he was unable to use water. And the time had come, and he had to purify himself. And the companions around him, they said, no, you got to use water. You got to use the water. So he used the water, and that water caused him to die. Using that water caused him to increase his illness and die. And when they came to Rasulullah ﷺ and they narrated to him what happened, he said, you killed your companion. You killed your companion. Allah has not ordained and obligated for you to do such a thing where it's going to cause you harm. So here we can see that the deen, it facilitates for our ease, and it ensures that there's no harm done upon us through any of the ibadat. And here, la darar, no harm. There should be no harm. This means, as some of the scholars say, it means no harm to yourself. So nobody should do things as they call self-harm by either it be through, whether it be misuse of drugs, whether it be any physical type of harm that you do to your body. This is completely haram. This is completely forbidden in Islam. And likewise, even worse than this, when a person takes his own life. And this goes on the principle that your body and your life is not yours in the first place. It's gifted to you by Allah. And you'll be held accountable before Allah to what you did with this body and what you did with this life. Which is why we cannot intoxicate the mind and all these things. And we know that Islam has come to preserve the self and the mind of the person. So again, Rasulullah said, whoever is to stab himself or throw himself off a building to kill himself in that manner, he would do so continuously. Subhanallah. Why? Because as a punishment for him for taking his own life. So it's completely impermissible to take somebody's own life or to cause any harm to oneself. And the other meaning here, وَلَا ضِرَارٍ, no harm to others. And we're going to get into the different meanings, inshallah. Meaning you cannot cause harm to other than you. No harm to yourself, and neither any harm to other people around you. And here we've got one example. Rasulullah ﷺ was once approached by a man. And they had a dispute among themselves. So one man, he had a garden, and the second man had a tree within this garden. And the second man would come and he would, tend to his tree in this man's garden, and he would come by and come out, and it was causing this person a bit of harm. So he said to him, like, either you sell me your tree, or either we come to some sort of agreement, because it's causing me harm. To me and my family, you have to keep coming in and coming out. So the man disagreed. He went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam what happened. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called the second man, and he says, gift him the tree. Gift him your tree, and I will promise you a tree in Jannah. You take a tree from the dunya, and I'll give you a tree in Jannah. I promise you that. The man disagreed. He said, I don't want to gift him the tree. So Rasulullah said, okay, at least sell him the tree. Sell him the tree, so it's his tree and you benefit from the money. And the man says, I don't want to even sell the tree. And then Rasulullah, he turns to the first one and he says, take that tree out and throw it out of your garden. Take that tree out, throw it out of your garden. And he turned to the second man and he said, Anta rajulun mudar. You are a man who's causing harm. So here the Sharia comes to prevent harm done to oneself and to others. طيب. Moving on, and very importantly, this hadith, subhanallah, and this shows you the beauty of the Arabic language. We can get three possible meanings from this hadith. The first one, which is what I translated as la darar wa la dirar, that there is no harm, nor is there any reciprocating of harm. There's no harm, nor should there be any reciprocating of harm. What do you mean by that? Meaning you don't do harm to start off with, and neither should you do harm to repel harm. Neither should you do harm to repel harm. So here, this is an important principle. Number one, you don't do harm. And number two, you shouldn't do harm in exchange for harm. The second meaning that we can get from this hadith is that la darar means stop harm in the first place. Stop any potential harm in the first place. Wala dirar, and if there is harm, then remove it afterwards. So the second type of meaning that we can get from this hadith. First place, you try to remove the harm. If harm does happen, then remove or get rid of that harm. The third meaning that we can get from this is the one that we just talked about. No harm, la darar, meaning you yourself should not be harmed, wala darar, and neither should others be harmed other than you. So this, subhanAllah, this one narration, in the depth of the Arabic language, we can understand these three different meanings, and all of them are applicable. طيب. First principle that we have, and we're going to go through 6 principles that the scholars have derived from this one hadith. And these principles, wallahi, they will help you in your day-to-day life to understand. And this is, as we've mentioned, this is the purpose of the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi, for the Muslim to be able to deal with different scenarios in his life. So here's the first one. First principle is that the harm should be removed. Ad-darar yuzal. Ad-darar yuzal. Harm should be removed. The example of this is, let's say there's a man who's in debt, and let's say he's in debt to several people. So he owes every 10 people, and he owes every one of them, I don't know, something like £10,000. So in debt, how much is he in debt in total? 100,000. He only has £50,000. He only has £50,000. Now the people come to him, those who gave him the loan, and said, "We want our money back." The man says, "I'm not paying the money back." So here, the judge has the right to do what we call, like, basically imprison him for a short period of time and take control of his wealth. Take control of his wealth. Like here, let's say the man says, "I've got 50,000. I like these 5 guys, but I don't like these 5. I'm going to pay those 5 people, and I'm not going to pay those 5 people." Here, there's harm to some, and the others are not harmed. So this is why in the Sharia, it is allowed now for the judge to come and take control of his wealth and distribute it, so that each person gets at least some of what they gave back. So how much would each person get in that case? 5,000, mashallah, good, ahsan. So each person will get 5,000, as opposed to some of them getting something and some of them getting nothing, or none of them getting anything at all. So here, the harm should be removed. The harm should be removed completely, and that is why we say that it is possible for the qadi or the judge to seize control over his wealth, because he's in debt to these people. So the Sharia will allow for the qadi to come and take control of his possessions, to ensure that no harm is done, based on this principle that the harm should be removed. So this is our first principle. I want you to bear in mind, take a note of these principles. They're very important principles, and we'll try to go through some examples if there's time at the end, inshallah. طيب. The second principle, harm should be removed as much as possible. It's kind of similar to the last one. The guy lost 10,000, at least he gets 5,000 back. So here again, harm بقدر الإمكان. الضرر يزال بقدر الإمكان. Harm should be removed as much as possible. طيب. For example, I give somebody a car. It's worth, let's say, £20,000, and he's unable to pay me back. We've agreed that he's going to pay back £20,000 at a certain time. And time goes by, and he's still not paying me back. And now I'm being harmed by this. I'm not getting my money back. I'm getting harmed by this. I go to him and I find the car that I sold to him exactly how it was right there. What can I do? Huh? You can repossess it, but isn't that causing harm to him? Huh? Does anybody disagree? Huh? Sell the car and split the money? Why does he need the money? He wanted the car. Who takes the money though? So you're still saying that he has to take the car back? Nobody disagrees with this? Huh? Take the car. So yeah, this is the example here is that is given is that it's permissible for that person to take the car and repossess it. In Sharia, it's permissible for you to repossess the car. And there's a hadith where Rasulullah said, "Man wajada mata'ahu inda rajulin aflas, fahuwa ahaqqu bih." Or kama qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whoever finds his possession with a person who is completely bankrupt, then he is more in right to take back what he previously owned. I gave him something. This man is now completely bankrupt. I can take my thing back from him. And this is also removing the harm from him as well. He no longer has a debt upon him. I've taken back my possession, and he has no debt anymore. So this is how the Sharia deals with trying to remove the harm as much as possible. Yarhamukallah. The third principle, harm cannot be removed by a similar harm. Harm cannot be removed by a similar harm. الضرر لا يزال بمثله. You cannot remove one harm by bringing in another harm. The example here is a person comes and says, here's Abdullah. Abdullah, you are under my control now. I want you to go and kill your brother, otherwise I will kill you. I want you to go and kill your brother, otherwise I will kill you. Is it permissible for him to go and kill his brother now to save his life? Why not? Because what? He's committing murder, which means go back to the principle. Harm cannot be replaced by another harm. Your soul is no more of worth than his soul. You can't do murder for murder. Yeah, I kill him, I save my own life. No, this is not permissible. Not permissible for you to take somebody else's life in exchange for your own life. Yeah, you can't. The one who kills you, he's the one that is going to be held accountable. Would you actually go and take another life just to save your life? You can't take another person's life to save your own life. Yeah, it's impermissible. If you're worried about what will happen, inshallah, you will go to Jannah as a shaheed, and that person, he will be held accountable before Allah. Allah will punish him for what he has done. Right. The fourth principle from this, the greater harm is removed by the lesser harm. And this is kind of, the fourth and fifth principle are very similar, kind of what we say in English, the lesser of the two evils. So the greater harm is removed by the lesser harm. Example here is, if I, and this will happen, subhanAllah, this actually happened, some people some of the Muslims that were, thrown into prisons like Guantanamo and things like this, and they had maybe a certain type of clothes that would only be able to cover their aura if they're sitting down. So a man is sitting down and his aura is covered when he sits down. If he stands up, his aura will be exposed. So he's in a situation here where he's got no choice, right? Either he stands up and prays salah and he's exposed, or he sits down, he's capable of standing up, he's physically able to stand up, or he sits down and he prays salah. Which one should he do? He's a prisoner. He can't change his clothes. He's only got this one piece of clothing. Huh? He should sit down. Why is it that he should sit down? Okay, so you're basically here, which one is the greater harm? The aura being exposed, as opposed to standing up and fulfilling the rukn of the salah to stand up. However, the fuqaha say if he was to stand up, salah would still be accepted, but it is better for him that he is to, because of his situation. Like subhanallah, may Allah protect those people who have been in Guantanamo. There were stories of them, they were completely naked for hours, and they would pray the salah in the situation that they're in. The salah is accepted because of darura. It's a matter of necessity. But here we're saying, remove the greater harm by the lesser harm. So him sitting down and covering his aura is better for him than to stand up and reveal his aura. Yeah. No, remember, we're talking about a specific scenario where a person, he has nothing apart from that one cloth that he has, nothing else. Of course, if he had the ability to cover his aura, then that is more, and this completely goes out of question. طيب, moving on, inshallah, the fifth principle, again, this is very similar. If there is, إذا تعارضت الضررين, if there's a clash of two harms, and the greater harm is avoided for the lesser harm. The greater harm is avoided for lesser harm. It's very similar to the previous principle, but we'll give an example to make it clear, inshallah. So, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah. It's a good example, then I'll try to, we can see if we can think of another example. Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah was once walking with his companions, and the people who used to be in charge, the Tatar, like the Mongols, they were drunk and they were drinking alcohol. Some of his companions, they said, we're going to go and we're going to smash their alcohol so that they can't drink anymore. So this is stopping an evil, right? This is stopping a harm. I'm going to stop and smash their bottles so that they can't drink anymore. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, no, don't do that. But hold on a second. The Shaykh is telling them not to do inkar of the munkar, not to prevent the evil. Why did he say, don't smash their bottles? Huh? You cause a harm like what? Ahsant, mashallah. You cause an even greater harm than the harm of them drinking alcohol. Them drinking alcohol is evil. This is a mafsada, it's an evil thing. And if you can prevent somebody from drinking alcohol, you should. But in this case, had they prevented them, because these are the people in authority, they would have started to come and attack the Muslims, and it would have caused even greater harm. And so that's why it was better for them to go for the lesser harm, which is to keep quiet upon the evil that's taking place, rather than stop the evil and a greater evil comes. I'll give you another example that comes to mind. There's a person that goes to I don't know, the raves or something where they have alcohol and all types of haram is happening there. So this is what he usually does. Or he has the other option. He's been invited. Let's say he's been invited to go to this place, and he wants to go to this place. Right? And on the other hand, he has the shisha bar, something where he goes and can smoke shisha and do all these things. Here, if you prevent him from if you say, don't go to the shisha bar, he's going to accept the invitation and go to the bar where is alcohol, and he could potentially fall into zina and all these things. So in this case, would say it would be better for him, not that it's acceptable, not that it's permissible, but it's better for him to go for the lesser harm, which is that he went to the shisha bar rather than going to the place where he's going to get involved in major sins. So this is what we mean by this principle, that if there's a clash of two harms, the greater one is avoided and the lesser one is brought forth. Like the last principle, inshallah, and then we'll try to do a scenario, bi'idhnillah. So the sixth principle that we learn from this hadith is that removing the harm takes precedence over establishing good. Removing the harm takes precedence over establishing the good. Or we say, dar'ul mafasid awla min jalb al-masalih. To remove harm, it is more important than bringing about good. An example here, when you are fasting, or before you're fasting, when you do wudu, what's the sunnah to do when you gargle and when you clear your nose? Mubalagha. Yeah, al-mubalagha means when you be very thorough. You gargle all the way until everything comes out. You take in the water up into your nostrils, clearing out your nose. This is the sunnah, right? If I do this, I get more reward. So I get greater reward for doing this. Like when I'm fasting, there's a risk of what happening? Breaking my fast, water going down. So should I do the sunnah over here, or should I be wary and not fall into breaking my fast? Huh? Do the sunnah. So I should do it. Look back at the principle. What should I do? Huh?
If you swallow it and break it fast is
Ahsant, mashallah. If I swallow the water accidentally and the water goes down, I risk breaking my fast in just trying to implement something that was sunnah. So the sunnah is good. We like the sunnah. Not saying that we don't want to do the sunnah. We want to do the sunnah. But if implementing the sunnah in this scenario was to risk you breaking your fast, we say don't do that. The priority is staying away from the harm. The priority is to stay away from the harm. Like, yeah.
What if your intention is to not break your fast will be broken?
Well, this is why it's important that we stay away, because some scholars say that if you know intentionally and knowingly you have a fast and you go and you gargle water and the water trickle down, you knowingly doing that, knowing the risks of this, they said your fast breaks. This is the opinion of some of the scholars. So obviously we want to stay away from messing around with our fast. Type. I want to give you a scenario, and then this is an open-ended question you can answer, inshallah. I want you to think about the principles. Which principle here is in effect? So the first, we'll give two scenarios, inshallah. The first scenario, Or inshallah, we'll give one. Let's give a good scenario. It's enough because of the time. طيب. So there's a person that is, or rather, this is one that is mentioned in by some of the fuqaha. We'll use the ones examples of the fuqaha as better. A woman is approached, and may Allah preserve all our mothers and daughters and sisters. A woman is approached by a man to do zina. She got no choice. Yeah? The man is kind of saying like, you got no choice, I'm going to do zina with you. So she has the option here that she complies and they do zina, or she hits him or pushes him away, whatever, which will result in her probably getting physically attacked. Probably be getting physically attacked. What I want you to, we're given a chance, inshallah, for them to answer. We'll let the answers come afterwards. But those are writing. What should that woman do, and based upon what principle? What should the woman do, and based upon what principle? I want you to bring your evidence here. So we'll give some time, inshallah, for those that want to answer this, but then we'll head to the audience, because I know some of the sisters downstairs as well maybe want to answer as well, inshallah. So again, one more time, I'll repeat the scenario, inshallah. So the scenario one more time is, there's a Muslim woman. She's been approached by a man who is forcing upon her to do a zina, saying, I'm going to do zina with you. So she either complies and saves herself from him attacking her or anything like that, or she tries to push him away, in which would result her being physically attacked by him. So let's see what we have here. So prevent the greater harm. So we have to explain here, what is the greater harm according to Al-Islam? Attack the man due to mental harm the zina could cause. Pepper spray. Yeah, okay, so pepper spray meaning to defend yourself. Scream for help or hit him really hard and run. Harm should be removed as much as possible. Okay, good. Harm should be removed. So good, mashallah, you're bringing in the different principles. Harm should be removed as much as possible. That's one. Prevent the greater harm. Prevent the greater harm. This is the principle I was looking for. So what does that mean if you prevent the greater harm? But what do you mean here? What is the greater harm here? The greater harm is her doing zina. Her doing zina. And the lesser harm, still a harm, is her being physically attacked, but at least she saves herself from a zina. So here we say that the principle of going for the lesser harm in order to prevent the greater harm from taking place. Is that clear? So this is what we mean by that principle of the lesser harm over the greater harm. Sorry? If she, yeah. من قتل دون عرضه فهو شهيد. The one who was killed in defense of his honor is a martyr. If the person was killed in the process, that person is a martyr for defending their honor. And no doubt, inshallah, of course, I mean, we're saying these scenarios just to understand the principles, but of course, we don't wish this on anyone, but it's important that we understand these principles so we know how to. No doubt this is an extreme scenario, but there are other scenarios in your life that will take place where you have to measure and outweigh the greater harm and the lesser harm. Now, here, important question: the greater harm and the lesser harm. Who is the one who decides? Who's the one who decides what's the greater harm and the lesser harm? Allah. The Sharia is the one that decides, not you. You might think, personally, I feel like this. We don't care what you personally feel. What does Allah say? If I have a choice here, there's a major sin or a minor sin. The major sin seems worse to me, and the minor sin here is no. Allah said this is the major sin, or Rasulullah ﷺ clarified that this is a major sin and this is a minor sin. Even if the major sin seems like a lesser evil to me, I have to go by what the Sharia says. Remember, that's a very important condition to this, inshallah. طيب. Some reflections, and then inshallah we'll take any questions, because I know there might be a few questions regarding this. لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده. No woman, no mother should be harmed by her child, nor should the father be harmed by his child. Allah mentions this in the Quran, and this is something that we see today. Before, it used to happen where the father would prevent the children from the mother. This was used to happen previously. A divorce takes place, the father causes harm to the mother by preventing her from seeing the children. So here Allah forbids this in the Quran, that the father, and here Allah says, لا تضار والدة بولدها. No mother should be harmed by her child in this manner. Today, unfortunately, what's happened, we see with how the court systems work and society is, the opposite is happening. The woman is preventing the children from seeing the father, which the stats are showing, and that is causing harm not only on the father, but also on who? On the children. The children need the father as they need the mother in their life. They need both the mother and the father. And you, because of some despite or hatred that you had between each other, you want to cause harm to that person, and in reality, you're only causing harm to your own child. Whether it be the father who prevents the children from seeing the mother, or likewise, the child needs both the mother and the father. And you preventing them from either parent is causing harm, and Allah has forbidden this in the Quran. And here also we have where you have oppressive divorce settlements. And this again happens because when society is not based upon the Sharia, you have all types of dhulm happening, all types of oppression happening. For example, one spouse has put all the money and hard work to possess a house. This is our house now. Things don't work out between them. Divorce happens, and now because the state gives me the power and the authority, I'm going to take 50% of this house, even though I didn't spend a penny on it. This is a thief. This is a theft. This is theft in Islam. If the other spouse did not spend any money, if they spent equal amount of money, okay, fair enough. But the one spouse bought the money with his wealth or with her wealth, whether it be man or woman, they bought that property with their wealth, and the other spouse comes and says, we were partners, and the law of the land permits me to take 50% of your wealth. I'm going to do that. Say, okay, fine, you can do that if you want to do it in this land. But Yawm al-Qiyamah, you have to answer before Allah for this thievery, for this theft that you have done. That is stealing in the eyes of Allah. And that will be on Yawm al-Qiyamah on that person's neck. So this is a very important thing, that person does not resort to these oppressive things, even if they are facilitated for him in the law of the land. طيب. Inshallah, we'll finish there. Just see here if we have any questions. And طيب. Any questions from here, inshallah? Maybe it'll take some time for them to answer the questions here. If you have any questions from here about this, is a very important principle. It's the shortest hadith, like we said, in the fourth hadith of Imam An-Nawawi, but subhanallah is one of the most important principles of Islam. Yeah.
It's an extreme one. In the case whereby a person will be killed.
A person, sorry?
A person will be killed.
Will be killed, yeah.
A person will be killed. If he doesn't, okay, he was told, you have to kill this person, else I will kill all these people.
Yeah.
So how do we categorize this? You have to kill this person.
Yeah.
Else, if you don't kill this person, I will kill all of them. Maybe 20 people or 10, 20.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're asking the question that he's asking. Just to I'll repeat the question. If you don't kill this one person, I'll kill you and all your family. Is that basically what you're asking? Yeah. I'll kill you and all your family. I'll kill more people. Let me just answer this question. I'll kill more people if you don't kill that one person. Again, we say لا ضرر ولا ضرار, meaning no harm, no reciprocating of harm. A harm cannot push away another harm. So here, the you taking away a life will never will never be able to justify him doing that. Remember, him going and doing this, there's no sin on you at all. There's no sin on you at all. Remember, no crime should be justified. لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. Nobody should take the burden of another person's sin. He wants to be a murderer, that should not force you to be a murderer. This is a moral conundrum that they have in Western ethics. That it's better if you go and kill that person, otherwise you're protecting your family. No, it's not the case. You're not protecting your family. Somebody comes and attacks your family and you defend them and you die in the process, that is you protecting your family. That's what Rasulullah said. Man qutila duna ahlihi fahuwa shaheed. The one who dies defending his family, then he's a shaheed. However, you going and killing somebody completely innocent just so that you and your family's life will be preserved, this is not something that the Sharia allows. And here we cannot use the principle of the greater harm and the lesser harm. Why? Because that's the lesser and greater harm in your own understanding, not in the understanding of the Sharia. Why? Allah says in the Quran, whoever kills one person is like he's killed all of humanity. So don't try to use what you might perceive to be greater and lesser harm in comparison to the Sharia. So here the point here is that, remember, whenever you are in a case of iddirar, whenever you are in a case of necessity, it should only be to deflect the harm from yourself without causing harm to others. That makes sense? For example, if you're hungry, فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. The one who's starving and he's going to die out of hunger, the harm is happening to who here? Myself. So then I'm allowed to eat haram meat or consume that which is haram in order to prevent the harm from happening to myself. Does that make sense? So here it's important that we look to the harm itself. Yeah.
How about the rules of law, like collateral damage?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, so this is something that's explained in the books of the fuqaha. If, like, for example, when it does come to war or something like this, and there's a case of collateral damage taking place, then there is a hadith that supports the fact that obviously the principle of reduce the harm as much as possible, but also if there's no way except by for example, they have some of the Muslim prisoners with them, and the only way to defeat the enemy is by attacking, and there's a chance of the Muslim prisoners being killed, then the fuqaha, they mentioned that this is permissible because it's reducing a greater harm, which is them attacking you and you losing the war.
Is that the exception?
That is of course an exception, but also the which principle applies here? The principle of reducing the harm as much as possible. Reducing the harm as much as possible. But again, this is obviously, we're talking about extreme situations. This is something that scholars have mentioned. Remember, this deals with exceptions. For example, I'll give you an example. When they attacked, I'm trying to remember the narration. Yeah, when they laid siege, for example, when they laid siege to a city, which is how it used to be in the olden days, you lay siege to a city. Now, obviously, the greater harm is them surviving and them still having power in the land. The enemy is still having authority in the land. This is the greatest harm. Now, you laying siege in Islam, we're not allowed to harm the women or the children or the innocent. This still stands. However, in the scenario where either you defeat the enemy or you say, "Oh, if I lay siege to them, if I lay siege to them, the women and the children will suffer. Therefore, I can't lay siege to them." In this case, we say no. You'd have to lay siege to them because the greater harm is them themselves, them being a threat. This is the greater harm. And remember, when we're talking about harms, it by no means belittles the other harm. We're not saying that Rasulullah SAW made it was unequivocal, made it very absolutely clear that you do not kill any man, any woman, child, or elderly. That still stands. But here we're talking about what is the greater harm versus the lesser harm. So this is something that is discussed by the fuqaha. Again, these principles, they are there to guide those exceptions that we have. Like, let me see. We don't have any questions from downstairs. We'll take one more question, inshallah, then we'll wrap up. Anybody? Yeah.
So
man dies in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't pay his bills because he's not in the capacity of paying the bills. And the family too were not able to raise enough to pay the bill. And the hospital were insisting that if you don't pay the bill, we are not releasing the body to you for prayers and then burial.
Yeah.
And though the family were able to raise something which is not even up to half of the amount he's owing the hospital. In this situation, if they pay that amount to the hospital will still not release the body to them, though they've reduced the amount he's owing the hospital.
Yeah.
And he left behind kids who no one is going to take care of.
Mm.
Will they have to use the money to save it for the kids or give it to the hospital? And I know they can pay Salat guy for the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that situation too, will he still be owing because there's an amount that needs to be paid to the hospital?
Okay, so I'll repeat that question, inshallah, for those that didn't hear. It's a very important question. So a man dies in the hospital, and just correct me if I'm thinking. A man dies in the hospital, and there's a certain fee that needs to be paid for the body to be released so that they can do the janazah and so on. And they are only able to collect, the family are only able to collect half of that money. And if they were to pay that money to the hospital, the body would not be released anyway. And he also has children that are, who's left behind, who can benefit from that money. So in this case, would it be permissible to give that? This again goes back to that principle of which one would be the greater harm. Allah, and remember, we go back to the Sharia. وَلْيَخْشَى الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضِعَافًا خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. That the one should be concerned and it should be fearful that if he leaves children behind that are weak and they are dependent, that he looks after them. So taking care of the orphans is undoubtedly, the orphans being a loss of wealth or not being able to survive. This is no doubt a greater evil than the obligation of the janazah being performed. So here we say undoubtedly the lesser of the or the greater evil here would be to leave the orphan children without any survival. Why? Because they are alive and they need to survive. Whereas this man here, yes, he has the rights upon us, upon the Muslim community to be buried, with the burial, but this is not as harmful as the other one. So here, of course, undoubtedly the orphans would take priority. Wallahu a'lam. طيب. If you're done, inshallah, yeah. We can talk about your questions afterwards, inshallah. طيب, inshallah. So like I said, we're going to continue the lessons from this week, inshallah, after Maghrib, Sunday, inshallah. We'll continue, and also for Friday. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.